Hey guys, when times get dark, knowing you're safe inside your home is vital. That's why we're going to be sharing some different ways you can upgrade your home to help protect yourself if shit hits the fan. The simplest place you can start to reinforce your home with is by upgrading the screws on the strike plates for your exterior doors. So, for example, this here is a machine screw, but it's about the same size that you would see used in most strike plates that are going to go on the door frame. This here is a 2.5-inch screw. I would go with like a 2.5 to 3.5-inch screw to replace these little size screws that come with it. By going over those screws and switching them out, you're going to go from screws that are just going into the door trim to screws that are actually going through the door trim and the frame and going into the actual studs around your door. These are going to significantly increase the strength of that door, and it's going to make it considerably more difficult for someone to actually try to break through that door to get into your house. Overall, when you look at door failures, usually it is these strike plates. They'll split out that door trim and allow somebody to get through. So switching these out is the easiest way you can make an upgrade to your home to start with. Now, the next thing that I want to touch on is going to be your local terrain and landscaping, as that's a major factor when it comes into how secure and defensible your home is. I want to differentiate a little bit between terrain and landscaping, because the fact is terrain's something that you can't change. It's something that you have to deal with and work around. So it would be things like mountains, rivers, lakes, creeks, hills, things that you don't have control over, while landscaping, on the other hand, would be things such as trees, shrubs, bushes, fences, things that you have control over around your property and local area. When it comes to adjusting the landscaping, there are several things you can do to help actually increase the security around your house. One of the biggest things is going to be making sure you're keeping your trees trimmed, especially around the bases. That's going to offer a lot less concealment for anybody trying to scope out your property or trying to sneak up on your property. Getting rid of any bushes as well, especially right around the household, is another big item you can do. That's again going to really help increase that security and offer a lot less places for bad guys to conceal themselves. Another thing as well, especially for you with larger properties out there, is making sure you're keeping it mowed. So especially you have, for example, fields or pastures around your house, you want to keep those grasses cut down low. You let them get too high, it's going to be something that can offer a lot of concealment for bad guys trying to sneak up on you. So those are some different factors I would look into. Another big thing as well is fencing. So if you do have fences, make sure your fences are actually set up and have their integrity in place, not that you have missing posts and boards in the fences that people could get through, as that's going to help create more funnels and choke points that you actually have to monitor and help keep people out of your property you're not wanting there, because the fact is, having things like secure fences and clear lines of sight around your property right off the bat are going to help deter bad guys from going towards you. The more care and the more appearance-wise the property looks secure and open, and there's not places for them to conceal themselves, the more likely they're just going to move on and try to find some place that's going to be easier for them to sneak up on or scope out. And that's something that's big to keep in mind. So adjusting those landscaping factors are a big play, because even if, for example, you're situated in terrain that is not advantageous to you, so for the example, your house is maybe towards the bottom of a valley, you having it set up on the actual property itself with good landscaping features that are advantageous to you and giving you wide open lines of sight is going to help prevent somebody from wanting to target your property in an SHTF environment. Because the fact is, people will go out and try to target others in an SHTF environment, and that landscaping factor is a major, major thing to consider and take those steps to help make it a little bit more secure on your end. Now, another item that you can throw in there to help increase that security presence around your home, and these are relatively cheap anymore to get, is going to be security lights. Security lights are going to have a great benefit when it goes out to creating visibility. You know, again, visibility for you being in the defensible position is a major factor, and lights pointing outward help with that. Lights are also a great deterrent. The fact is, criminals and bad elements do not like to be seen, and the more visibility out there, again, as we talked on with the landscaping and with lights, it's going to prevent that. Criminals just shy away from it. Bad guys will shy away from being in the light, as it makes them a target. And they don't want to be targets. They want to do what they can to sneak up on people. So getting lights out there And having security lights that function are very important in that respect. And again, they're relatively cheap. Now, you do have different variants out there, such as solar-powered variants. Those are great because you can stick them further out near gates or fences, areas around properties where you may not have current power. And those are typically going to be motion-detected lights. That is one thing you want to keep in mind, though, too, is depending on the situation, you may want to go out and turn them off, as if things get to a certain extent, it can have the opposite effect and draw attention towards your property. But in most situations, having the light's going to be beneficial in locations like that. You also do have security lights that work off dusk to dawn settings, or you can just have on a flip switch. So I would kind of feel out what's going to work best for your environments for lighting, but I would definitely get security lights around your property if you don't have them. And another thing I want to point out as well with those lightings is, again, most of them now are LEDs too, so they have very low power consumption. So even if you're going with battery powered options or those solar options, they're going to last a lot longer than if you were trying to run some sort of old style incandescent versions of those lights. The next thing that I want to bring up is going to be audible alarms. Audible alarms are something that you can typically get for just a couple dollars, and they're another great deterrent. Typically, those audible alarms are going to be a battery-powered device that you can attach to a door or window, and when the sensor is broken, it would send out a loud chirping noise that would be alerting you and putting your attention to where that alarm was set off, as well as being a good deterrent because it's drawing attention to that area, so the person who set that alarm off is going to know, and they're going to probably want to get out of there because they know somebody's going to be showing up to investigate. So those audible alarms coming in at a super cheap price are really good to get and throw out there. They do have versions as well, such as driveway alarms. So you can set those up, and they have lasers that'll point into each other on the sensor, and it'll set off an alarm if that laser beam's broken. So you can use those over driveways, trails, around gates, areas on the outside areas of your property where you may not feasibly be able to put the standard audio alarms. And those can set off an alarm on a remote area, such as a speaker in a house. So those would be another option as well, especially for you with larger properties, because you may want to be alerted in the house when the sensor goes off, but maybe you don't want that sensor to go off out there. Or you're just potentially going to be having a lot of false alarms as well if you're out in a more rural area dealing with animals like deer and raccoon and stuff. So those audible alarms are good to have. Another thing as well with those audible alarms is dogs honestly are a great thing too. Like dogs, whether you're a dog person or not, they're a great audible alarm. Dogs typically sense when something's wrong. They're very observant. They have more acute hearing than most humans. So they're going to notice stuff before we typically do, and they're a great signifier on something's wrong or something's off, and they'll typically alert you. So I'm going to throw dogs in there kind of with that audible alarm category. And the next thing I'm going to bring up here, and in my opinion this is probably one of the best investments you can have, is a good camera system. Now, when it comes to camera systems, you see a lot of people out there using like Ring or Nest systems, and those are great and they have a purpose, but for our needs, we want to be looking into a good quality hardwired system. So for example, you see on the cheaper end some companies like Night Owl and Swan have them out there. Lorex is a company that also makes some great camera systems. So anything like that's going to be a great place to start. You can always build off of the kits that you buy for those camera systems. But with those camera systems, they're a giant multiplier when it comes to your home security. Those camera systems are able to be placed in positions to cover blind spots. They can be placed up to several hundred feet away from the property, or at least from the actual house if you're wanting to run wires out there. And it's relatively easy to run wires if you just look up some videos on it, and that's something that you can figure out because you're not dealing with high voltage wires or any sort of major power for these. You're dealing with internet cables basically for most of these camera systems. So running wires, having that camera system set up where you have a central monitoring location in your house where that DVR box is that it's all connected to, and having a small monitor to monitor them is going to allow you to, from one central location, monitor your property, see what's going on. Another thing with these camera systems as well is typically they don't draw a lot of power. You know, they're going to operate similar power consumption wise to a lot of computers. So battery backups, depending on the battery backups you're willing to buy, will last up to several hours without power. Now, on the other hand, if you step up more towards like a solar generator with some solar panels, you could probably run most of those camera systems, and definitely, especially with the larger solar systems. Now keep in mind with these cameras as well, another big reason to look into them is they use infrared light to see at night. So infrared light's relatively invisible to the human eye. You really can't detect it. Now, other people out there with infrared equipment would be able to see that. So that you want to keep that in mind. But for the average person out there, you're not protecting against somebody with that equipment more than likely. You're protecting against looters, scavengers, people that are not operating on a very sophisticated level. So you're going to have that advantage of being able to see them out there, even if it's dark, using these camera systems at night when they can't see that you're monitoring it. So that allows you to be better prepared and be a little bit more on edge to watch them and understand what's going on. And the final thing that I really want to bring up here that I would say is important is going to be building up your local community. So this is what I want to say to round off the list is building up that local community, getting out there, knowing your neighbors, knowing the people around you is going to be a vital thing and probably one of the best bang for your buck investments you can make when it actually comes to upgrading your home security. Getting those neighbors that you're friendly with and that you can cooperate with and that you guys all kind of have a plan to work together when something happens is going to take a lot of stress off of just one person as the individual and kind of help distribute it overall within your community. The fact is, when shit hits the fan, you need to be prepared to work together within that community because either you guys are going to work together and thrive together or it's going to be ending up with you guys turning on each other when something happens. You know, you want to make sure that your neighbors are the people you're cooperating with and they're going to be on your side when you have violent threats potentially facing you in an SHTF situation, and they're not going to be the ones turning into that violent threat. So get out there, work with your neighbors as well, creating that cooperation, and you know, you don't have to share what you do have yourself for preps. Work on trying to get them into it too. You know, you don't need to full scale get them on to a high level, but you know, just getting them to be used to that idea that, oh, maybe, you know, it's good to have, you know, a couple extra days worth of food and water on hand and to be prepared where something happens. You know, you get strike, for example, with a natural disaster like a hurricane or a tornado, you guys can band together and work together to protect your communities and protect each other. So that's what I would say is our biggest one here. But every single one of these items here would be great to look into, great ways to help upgrade the defense for your home and help your home be better prepared and hardened for when something happens. But I want to throw this out here. What do you feel that we missed or that we didn't really touch on this list? You know, we'd love to have you hit that subscribe button down below and drop us a comment telling us what essential or easy upgrade you would take personally or you don't mind sharing that we didn't touch on this list here today. You know, we always love to hear that opinions down there, so drop them down, let's hear them. And that's really all we have here today. I just want to tell you, stay safe and stay prepared.